How has love changed? How have connections changed?
What is important in relationships?
As we have evolved as human beings, a lot has shifted into what the world looks like.
We set this standard for what we feel love is going to be in our life. Then we want to hold everybody to that standard. How unfair is that? Somebody else will never know exactly what you need. Only you know. Are you ready for a partnership?
You can't just get in and coast.
Some of the things that we hear so often is relationships are work. There's a huge difference between work and effort. Relationships take effort and they take attention, but it's not work. That effort can be toward fun, and it's never too late to start. And the question we all have to ask ourselves, what type of love do we desire?
And you complete me. Jerry Maguire.
It's hard to even hear that without laughing.
I know. It's, that's one of the most famous quotes in romantic comedy, or not rom-com, it's not even comedy. It kind of feels like a comedy.
It is, really, when you think about it now.
From the 90s. That's the 90s movies, right? Yeah. It's, wow. Yeah. I know. Like even in Night at the Roxbury, they make fun of it, and so it's kind of it's held on as like a really romantic thing while simultaneously being a joke, which is kind of interesting, right?
But stop, you had me at hello.
Yes, that's the best. I love when Night at the Roxbury when they do that.
And didn't Austin Powers make fun of it too?
Oh yeah,
one of the Austin Powers.
Complete me.
Yes. me.
Yeah. Yes, just the two of us. I'm glad we're talking about this quote because it was seen at the time as such a deep, romantic, and honestly even like vulnerable.
Yes.
I mean, there was like a tear. There was, a lot of emotion from that experience, and so not seeking to make fun of the acting in any way, shape, or form from that standpoint, but it's an opportunity for us. More than 30, maybe 3 decades later, give or take. How has love changed? How have relationships changed? How have connections changed as we have modernized and evolved as human beings in the last 3 decades? A lot has shifted into what the world looks like. And so things like, or quotes like, you complete me, is that really a loving statement?
And ultimately, what is important in relationships? Despite what movies have shown us, or now what we're finding online and what all of these coaches or romance support groups or others, I mean, even we provide some of that. And we say all of the time, find what fits for you. Because it is important. What's really important in relationships, despite what anybody else is telling you.
Yeah.
And that's the core, I feel, of the discussion that we have all the time in our own personal relationship, and why I think it's important to talk about things like what we learn from movies. I remember watching Jerry Maguire with friends back in the day. Not the day, but around that time, we're all looking for these rom-com movies that we can watch, or those romantic ones that blow you open. And we set this standard for what we feel love is going to be in our life. Then we want to hold everybody to that standard.
Mm-hmm.
It's an impossible standard. How many takes did it take for them to create that scene? I'm estimating Tom Cruise didn't nail that on one take. So now I'm going to go into my romantic relationship and I'm going to anticipate that my partner is going to be able to live up to a scene from a movie that probably took Tom Cruise 4 or 5 takes.
And was scripted. By the way.
How unfair is that? How dare you, Austin, not be able to come up with on the spot, you complete me. After you treated somebody like crap, by the way, for how long? And now if I put myself in Renee Zellweger's shoes, I'm going to be like, oh, okay. I'm glad I complete or however that whole flow was. And like I've blocked it out mentally at this point
Mhm.
just because it's not feasible necessarily in real life. So why would I desire to craft our connection around a scripted non-reality? Do you ever get tired of that negative voice in your head telling you what you can and cannot do? My name is Amber Mikesell, and I personally got tired of that villainous voice controlling my inner realm. So I wrote this book, Silence Your Inner Critic. It's a comic book type series where you go in and you fight that villainous foe all along an epic quest. You can learn more about this fun filled adventure over at silenceyourinnercritic.com, and you can purchase your copy right there, or you can purchase it wherever you enjoy buying books.
I mean, it is pretty amazing how pervasive the idea that of love through the Hollywood lens has impacted relationships. It truly, truly is has been amazing. So it's a good time for us to start reflecting and understanding, what can we learn from it. A lot has shifted in 30 years, just like the previous 30 years and the previous 30 years before then. It seems like, definitely over the last 100 to 120 years, give or take, humanity has really, really been evolving quickly, right? There's a lot of moving things that have occurred, just in a couple generations. And so, now that we look into the future for what does love look like in a modern world, in an evolved world, in a conscious world?
Yes.
And these are the kind of questions that we need to look at. So we can take quotes like this and really, understand how have they unintentionally created an unfair expectation,
Yes.
and we can start to learn how to discern the difference between a romantic drama, or, I know there's comedy. I mean, there's some funny parts in that movie and stuff too. So I don't say
Show
it's
me
like
the
yeah,
money.
exactly,
That was
exactly.
hysterical.
The human head is 8 pounds. It's like there's some funny little things in that movie that are fantastic, and but it's if we can learn how to, take big moments like that and recognize that just because it's said in a movie and is emotionally charged, if you will, during the movie, that it is separate from our lives.
Right.
And so what can we learn from that? Well, we can learn that treating someone like, terribly for a long time and then telling them you complete me. Well, that's kind of screws with your head. Like, is that really love then? Like, is that, what's going on here? There's kind of there's a bigger source issue happening here. And we can talk about worthiness, we can talk about self-love, we can talk about what does it mean to be two independent wholes that come together to create something that is greater, not because it is dependent, but because together it's expanded, it's limitless in its potential because it's so connected.
Exactly. And so, even dissecting within yourself, if you had watched that movie and then you longed for someone to come forward in your life and say that you completed them, or you were looking for someone to complete you, then what is it that you're truly seeking in a partner? And are you ready for a partnership?
Mm,
Because searching for someone to complete you means that you feel like there's something missing within you. And you're not going to find that by going out and seeking someone else to plug a hole.
yeah.
That will nearly every time, and I can say this from experience, nearly every time that will result in something not working out because somebody else will never know exactly what you need to fill something within you. Only you know what it is that is like gaping open within you that needs attention. So, if you're desiring to build a real, lasting, thriving connection with someone else, we need to figure out what is gaping and missing within us first. And generally, that only results from taking the time to be with yourself, sit with yourself, find that thread to fix whatever that is. Maybe it's something very simple, but it's just gone unlooked at for so long. And it could just be fixed with attention,
Mhm.
just a little bit of attention. Or maybe it is something much deeper that creating a codependent relationship is actually going to make worse, not better.
I mean, that's kind of where, like, how long have we heard, "Oh, I'm looking for my other half." What is that? Just even that alone, what type of energy are we putting into the relationship before it started? What type of lack of self-worth are we unintentionally burdening the relationship with?
And I want to say, because it did come from so much experience from both of our sides, and we have been so transparent about this. And our relationship is not everybody's relationship. But I feel the more we're willing to share, if we've been in relationships in the past that did not end up the way that we had hoped, but then we find our way into ones that are healthy and thriving and just like on fire, right? Then taking the time to reflect, how did we go from here to here? And what changed about us? What changed within me? And how am I contributing to this relationship differently than I contributed to the others? Then we can share that. And it helps others begin to ask, hey, do I see any of myself in what they're saying? Can I gain something from that? Especially if you desire to either be in a thriving relationship in the one you're in, because maybe there are just behavior shifts that both of you can make.
Mhm.
Or you're recognizing this might not be the relationship, but the next one I get into, I really want that one to thrive. So I can start it completely differently and show up completely differently. But first, maybe there are some things I need to kind of fuel within myself before I even enter that one.
Yeah.
Right. And there were so many things that I needed to do for me before we became a we.
Mhm.
And you consistently say there were so many things that you needed to do for you before we became a we so that we could engage in this connection. And we were honest and transparent with each other the whole way through.
It's important to note that 10 and a half years later, we're still doing that. We're still
Yes.
prioritizing our how does our me become we?
Yes.
And because even though we are a we, like we are Groot,
We are Groot.
we we're still individuals in this experience. And so instead, what we do now is we actively communicate with each other where we're at.
Yeah.
And we say, "Hey, I need help." Or can you be aware of this because this is something I'm focusing on? Can you call me out when this occurs because I want to move past X, Y, and Z? So it is still a focus of the me, not from a selfish standpoint, but from a personal growth standpoint. But we're doing it knowing that we have a an incredible, loving, safe space to continue to get better. And so, even though we started from that standpoint, we never stopped it. And I think that's kind of the standpoint. It's like so much of life is seems to be around, um, it's like f- a result. So once you've achieved now you're in the relationship. It's like, okay, now just everything just stops. It's like, well, no, that's not. You can't just get in and coast.
Yes.
And it doesn't mean it needs to be work or we need to fight for this and all that. And I know we're going to dive into that.
Oh yeah, because that's some of the things that we hear so often is relationships are work. So you have to be willing to work on it every single day.
How does that sound fun?
Who wants to work every single day on something that should be so awesome, you know? So yeah.
Oh, I'm with you on that. So I want to get into that in a little bit. But for now, I lost my train of thought.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
I
Um,
derailed his train.
yeah, I don't know. It was probably good, but it probably wasn't. I don't know. Again,
Well, maybe
this
you'll
is
get
why
your
it's not scripted, right? I can't.
exactly. Can't get right back to script.
Yes.
Maybe your train will get back on the track as we talk, and you'll.
And this is what's great about having a great partner is like, you can kind of step right in right when I'm like, don't know what's going on. Um,
Well, if you have your aha moment and it comes back, then you can just take over my track and
there we
keep
go.
on going. How's that?
That sounds good.
We'll just be on the same train all the way along.
Well, let's move into, since that is the relationship is work and all that. We might as well just dive into it.
Just dive in.
Yeah.
And, there's a difference. We talk about it a lot for us because there's a huge difference between work and effort.
Right.
Even hearing it, it's when I personally say I have to work, it's like, ugh, I feel like I have to saddle so much on my back and cross the plains or something. I don't know. It just feels so heavy, right? But something taking effort means I'm getting something in return. And what I get in return will be worth the effort. And so, yes, relationships take effort and they take attention and they take mindfulness so that we can consistently be on the same page with one another.
Mhm.
But it's not work. That effort can be toward fun.
Mhm.
That effort could be toward meditation and syncing up with one another, right? I just wrote something recently around how our weekends together really take the time to carve out our sacred space for one another, where we can meditate and link our hearts together so that the rest of the week is us being in that same energy. That's not work. That's such a gift. I can't believe I get to do that with you every single weekend.
Mhm.
How lucky am I?
How lucky am I?
Right? And so to call that work
Yeah.
seems almost blasphemous,
Yeah.
but it does take attention and effort because, of course, we are incredibly busy. We have so many things going on, from the book tour that we have to all of the different initiatives that we have going on through Suivera, our parent organization that sponsors what we have going on here with the Heart Leader podcast.
All the rebranding that we've been doing, all of the new connected communities we're tying into and helping bring to the table and flourish. Like
Our
there's a
amazing
lot.
team.
Our amazing team, they are on
Wow.
fire. It's incredible. So
So,
yeah.
of course, of course, of course, we could spend all weekend working, but we cherish our connection. And I'm going to take the time and the focus and the attention to say, you are the most valuable thing that warrants my attention. I don't want to say thing. Thing just felt wrong, even saying it. You are the most valuable person in my world. Why would it not be the most sacred time carved out of my schedule to connect with you?
Mhm.
But how easy is it to forget? Not out of lack of love, but the world is very busy,
Yeah.
right? So, what is truly important? We have to figure that out in our connection, in our communication style, in our way of being together as a couple. Because for other couples, maybe, of course, but maybe it might not be meditating and syncing up heart energy. It could be that going on hikes or playing sports together. However, you bond as a couple, that is going to be your partnership's love language and connection way.
Mhm.
But for us, our sacred space is movies. That's why we use a lot of movie quotes. That's why we talk in movie quotes. and having that time together.
Yeah, and deep talks. We'll go on long walks. We'll talk the whole time. We'll forget that we even have our phones with us. Like,
Yes.
it's prioritizing the connection and just remembering that, yeah, I mean, we are still best friends. And that's, no matter what we're doing, what we do is, it may last, and there's legacy to doing. To
It
me,
will last.
I'm sorry.
It will last, not it may last.
Well, I'm talking in general,
Oh, okay.
not like our like. Yes, I'm just saying there are things that people do that
As
aren't,
people.
as
Okay.
people as
I was like,
people.
I'm just putting
Yes,
it out there. It will last.
yes,
Universe. You did not hear it may. It will.
yes. In general, for people, not everything that we do lasts,
Okay.
is what I'm attempting to. I didn't
Perfect.
want. I
I'm
needed
on your train
an
now.
open space for that. But I don't know how to put this, but in the present moment, it always does. And so the more that we can prioritize presence and recognize that when we bring intention and purpose into presence, and we extend that presence into the relationship, and then we prioritize that and we expand upon that, that's what creates connection.
Yeah.
And a byproduct of that is lasting, is that it does last with love, with honoring, with respect, with purpose. And that's, to me, that's not work. That is soul filling. And
Yes.
that's the difference. Yeah, it's fuel for our souls. And through that process, we become better versions of ourselves, which is exciting. And again, that's not work. That does not feel like drudgery, or like, oh, I have to do this, or I've got to get this done, or I've got this deadline to talk to my love. We have to have another walk and talk. Like, no, I can't wait for that. That's the most exciting part. And so that, I think, is so important in this conversation of, relationships take work, and you have to work at it every day. And it's, sure, that might be one experience of it, but that's probably coming from an unfulfilled and disconnected relationship. That's what that feels like. Disconnection creates the feeling of to me, creates the feeling of work.
Yes.
Connection creates the feeling of ease. And I don't know, it just feels like things fall into place. And it is effortless, but it's simultaneously effortless.
It's effort less. Like there's almost that pause, as you just pointed out. It's effort, but less
Mhm.
because there's less effort that goes into it. Doesn't mean there's no effort.
Yeah, and when we've had difficult conversations, and it's not like we're all just super.
Mhm.
What is it? What is the word? Surface level. There we go. That's
Right.
the word. I was attempting to say superficial, but I guess that kind of could work. But um, surface level. But the reality is, like, we have so much depth into what we have a lot of long conversations about stuff. But again, those can be fun too. Like, there's no rule book saying they have to be, difficult, drudging conversations. They can be fun. They can be connected. They can be exciting. And it can still pull the best even when we do talk about the difficult stuff. And that's what I feel like we've done really, really well. We found our flow for that, however that means. I mean, that's not like, unfortunately, we're never going to have the difficult conversation in the same capacity that we would to ourselves as we would in a podcast or in a group setting, or in it just, there's a reason why relationships are between two people and not the whole world.
Yes, exactly.
But we will do our best to be as transparent, open, and conversational about what we talk about. But it's just inherently different. It just
Yeah.
is.
I don't think there's a person in the world who would disagree that the moment a camera is shoved in your face, you're not a little bit
Mhm.
different.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it just happens. But we do our best to be just a minuscule different versus a lot different,
Yeah.
right? This is us.
Mhm.
And we'll do our best to be as transparent as we can possibly be because that allows all of us to learn together.
Right.
Now, if you're willing, I do feel like there's another thing that I consistently see and get asked about,
Mm.
which is that there are roles in relationships that are just roles in relationships. So I don't care really when it comes to gender, it doesn't define the role, but it is one is masculine and one is feminine. And that is how you get for us. I would be the feminine, you would be the masculine. And that is how we are in the relationship throughout. And so we are pigeonholed in that flow.
Yeah, that almost perpetuates the "you complete me" thing, right? In terms of the half, two halves come together to create a whole, right?
There you go. Right?
Wow.
Yes,
Yeah.
100%. I don't find that to be true in our case.
Mhm.
It is an energy, masculine and feminine. And there are times when I am very much in my masculine energy. And because we are so connected and we have been so conscious of that connection and fostering it and being very fluid in it, just making certain it's constantly flowing between us. If I am in my masculine, then you are so keenly aware of that, that you are willing to be in your feminine and nurturing and supportive when I am in my masculine and I am doing and very much in action and going after something. And then the moment that that is completed for me and I settle back into my feminine and you go into your masculine and you go after something, whether it is as you're studying at Harvard and you have things that are due y- and deadlines that you have to meet, you are actively doing and learning and focused. Then I'm able to settle into my feminine and nurture you and support you. And we've got this, it is that perfect little weave that
Mhm.
we do. And it's not because we're so tied to, I'm the feminine and you're the masculine.
Mhm.
And we don't even have to say words, we just know it. It is the yin and the yang, and it is effortless and it is fluid.
Yeah. Yeah, it's harmony, right? I mean, that's
Right.
it's the same note in a different octave. And that's what when you can especially when you can stack harmonies, I mean, that's when it feels really, music feels really, really full and expressive and connected. And it's just like, whoa, that's when you see some of the best, when you hear some of the best music and you hear a harmony and someone stacked a harmony with like four or different, five different octave ranges into that harmony, it just feels so expansive and full. And so and that's to me what you're talking about. And there's that ebb and flow of that. And so we're a partnership in harmony from that standpoint, where we are actively recognizing where we're at and moving into the role. It's total football.
Yeah, it
Yeah, I know we
is.
talked about that before, right? It's total
We
football,
did.
like Ted Lasso, right?
Thank you,
Um,
Ted Lasso.
yeah, and moving into the role, what do you need right now, and what do I need, and actively being in that connection point, knowing that hey, not every it's never going to be 100%. We know that, but it's going to be really, really close, and there are going to be ways that we can bring things up, like hey, when this occurred, it would be great if next time if you could really do this to support me even more or something like that. Then it's like, oh yeah, totally, that makes I never would have thought of that. It makes a ton of sense. Let me I'll really focus on that next time to really so that you feel completely supported, and vice versa, right? So
Exactly. And again, that is something that in every partnership, partners need to truly explore and understand. Because maybe in some partnerships, it is. I feel better when I am fully in my feminine all of the time. And you feel better when you are fully in your masculine all of the time. So our connection is far more deepened by allowing us to both be where we are most comfortable, and we thrive. But if you're not aware of that and you just expect, which is the killer I feel, at least it was in all of my other relationships, that expectation killed so many things because we didn't discuss it. We just expected that the other one knew.
Mhm.
And if you don't take the time and understand how that flows, and you just expect that the other one knows and that it should be as fluid as what we have found ours to be because we took the time to understand, then it really can kill that out, right? I need you, my partner, to be more nurturing and supportive and caring and compassionate when I am doing so many things and I'm going out and I am, we'll say, working because I have to go out and take care of career things and you have more time. But that's never actually spoken
Mhm.
in a relationship. And so it isn't addressed. It is just in the back of somebody else's head who is doing more of the masculine energy tendencies and is anticipating that somebody in the other person in the partnership is just going to be like, oh, yeah, by default, I'm going to start doing more of the feminine energy things, which is nurturing and caring and holding that compassion. Well, maybe that's not their natural energy. Maybe their natural energy is more masculine too.
Yeah.
So, how are they going to know?
Yeah. And there's a lot of individuals who, yeah, as you said, may want to focus in one area, but that doesn't mean they don't desire to experience the other, even if it's, a lot less than the other, for example. And so there might be times where these things come up, these fights or these disagreements and disconnection, and it's simply because there's an expectation around whether it's a gender normative role or just some
Mhm.
kind of um, experiential role that's been dictated through the relationships dynamic, that it gets stuck. And then someone who is constantly nurturing, for example, they want to be nurtured too.
Yeah.
And sometimes they want to be in that, like, they need to like get up and go and do things, and then they want to be supported. And the person that's constantly doing, and maybe that person wants just needs to be taken care of. And so there's this fine line where having that kind of conversation and connection and understanding kind of just, again, when there's not that communication, that's why it feels like work. Then because it feels like friction, it feels like there's a disconnection, right? And that's not harmony, that's noise.
Yeah.
That's nails on a chalkboard noise that doesn't, it's like, it's cringy, and it's
Yeah.
like, it's kind of oil and water in that sense, right? And so when we can communicate and connect and really understand in that level, that's where this effortlessness feels. And we can kind of just fall in to the space and just know that it's, again, it's coming from a space of, it's not going to always be exact. There's going to always be room for improvement. And that's where we talk about where we have to prioritize positive intent, like we've talked about in other podcasts, where in those moments where, hey, you might be in your doing and I might be in the nurturing in that moment, and maybe I'm caught up a little bit because I've got a little bit of doing to do too, but I'm also attempting to nurture. And then it's just, I'm not fully nurturing in the way that you needed in that moment. It's not because I don't want to be, it's because I'm attempting to balance within me while also balancing within ourselves. And I know you felt that too. And so it's just those moments of like prioritizing the positive intent, just saying, hey, I'm going to show up the best that I know how. And any feedback that comes back is not to put me down or to hurt my ego or to shut me out or shut me down. It's only to inform.
Yeah.
And it's only to know that when we're doing things, especially now, like in things we've never done before, which in any relationship, you're going to do things that you have never done as a couple before.
Yup.
Like, that's just facts, especially the longer you stay together. That's just facts. So, that's where that's so important.
And then if you can have just little, I guess you could say, code words that help too. For us, we started out with, okay, when you insert blank, I feel, and then say the feeling. That way, it allowed us to express how we were feeling. It was our just neutral way of discussing because we were starting new communication flows between ourselves. And if we had just gone rogue and said whatever the heck we wanted, then we could go down a rabbit hole very quickly because our communication styles were not the same.
Hmm.
How you grew up understanding how to communicate was very different than how I grew up learning how to communicate.
Hmm.
So that gave us a common ground, and it was very neutral for how to establish our way as a couple for communicating. So if we were having an emotion that was arising based on an action that either one of us were doing, we could use a very base statement or like a code statement. When I feel, then it was very neutral and it wouldn't elicit a very strong emotional response. And it was something we could both start from. Then from there, we could build our own communication approach that allowed us to have our own flow.
Hmm.
But if we just took both of our communication styles and attempted to ram it together, which is, again, something I had always done in the past, we came from two completely different approaches from family styles, two different cultures. How in the world could we ever imagine that that would just seamlessly fit together? So you have to have that neutral area so that then you can learn what your approach would be together,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And it wasn't a blame, like when you say, when
Mhm.
you do blank, I feel blank, it's not like a blame game. And
Right.
that's important to put the parameters around it and just kind of talk through, hey, this statement is a safe place statement.
Yes.
It's not a blame game or to put you down or anything like that. It's to actively show respect for the relationship and prioritize the love.
And so they could have a completely different neutral statement,
Totally.
whatever works for a relationship. And it's never too late to start,
Hmm.
right? If communication goes sideways, it's figure out what a neutral space could be and rebuild from a neutral space. That's always a key thing.
Hmm.
Now, because we were talking about movie quotes, I brought one
Yes.
because I think it's great to get to a place of reflection and start to break things down. This starts that whole awareness cycle of that stuff that feeds into our relationships that we might not even know, right? So when I was young, the movie The Notebook came out, and it was a movie that, again, my friends and I flocked to, and we were like, I want my relationship to be like that, right? And then we were watching Just Friends.
Yes.
So it perpetuated into other movies, right? This is a quote that gets pulled up, and people feel like it's more real and realistic. But I want to know what you think.
Mm.
It's not going to be easy. It's going to be it's going to be really really hard. We're going to have to work at this every day. But I want to do that because I want you.
Mm.
Probably had other things on the back, but
Yeah. Um,
how do you feel about that?
Very similar to the feeling of that's the start of this podcast. That again, another quote that was probably romanticized in a lot of ways. Um, but again, it's that feeling of work, and we're gonna have to fight for this. And it's like, what type of? I guess the question is what type of energy do you want in your relationship? Do you want everything to be a fight? Do you want everything to be an uphill battle? Do you want to um, dramatize in order to feel fulfilled? Yeah, if two people want that, I guess it's not what I would choose, but who am I to judge? Or I'm not. It's just that's what a lot of that's what I thought relationships had to be until I understood what is possible. And everything that we had talked about up until this point, there's a lot of things are very relevant to this quote. And it's, to me, when you're deeply in love and connected, then it doesn't feel like an uphill battle. It doesn't feel like you have to work. It doesn't feel like it's constant every single day, this drudgery, this fight, this, my ball and chain, and all these other words that are tied to the other person, as if it's a burden to be in the relationship. That to me isn't love. So I just disagree with it.
What I really appreciate about the movie The Notebook is it showed so many different types of love.
Mm,
I do feel like The Notebook encompasses love,
mm,
but there are different ways that we can experience love.
mhm,
And the question we all have to ask ourselves at the end of the day is, what type of love do we desire?
mm. It's a great question.
I personally have experienced so many levels of love throughout my life, and I am so grateful for that. But I finally reached a point in my life where I loved myself enough to say, I am worthy of a love that doesn't ask me to sacrifice my own happiness for the sake of a connected happiness, because both can exist simultaneously. And we seem to have this notion that they don't, that we have to sacrifice our own joy for the sake of a partnership or our family, that this is some kind of duty or obligation
Yeah.
that we must pay, and that if we're miserable, it's okay. And I finally realized that that's not how it has to be. It can be that, and there's nothing wrong with that choice either. Like, it's all love. But what kind of love do I desire?
Yeah.
And then when I choose, I have to choose wholeheartedly, because that's what love does. And if I'm going to be love and I'm going to embody love, then I have to choose that wholeheartedly and with my whole being. And that's what I did. And that, I really feel, is the core message. If we're going to say what's truly important in a relationship, in a partnership, and in a connection, it's that choice. You choosing what you actually desire in that connection. And if you're okay in a loving connection being the one who self sacrifices to make your partner happy, then don't complain about it when you're doing it, right? And if your way of loving is connecting fully with yourself and bringing joy for yourself and allowing that then to connect you and your partner, do that fully. But whatever you choose in love, choose it 100%.
Beautifully said. Thank you.
That's what I would say about this quote. I do feel like when this is said, it was said from that place of 100%. It was meant. But I agree with everything you said too. That is not the right fit for us.
What to me it is in the most reductive approach is transaction. It's love as a transaction. And that's okay. If someone wants that, then as you're saying, just having the awareness and the connection and the understanding and the consciousness around it to then actively choose it. And then, but if you're choosing it and then complaining about it and then back and forth, and it's like, and then you're playing a victim role, then that's not helping anyone. That's not going to help the relationship. That's not helping the people around you. That's exactly what creates this feeling of work and uphill battle and all these words that are fighting. On the flip side, when you move into it wholeheartedly and you feel that love from a completely fulfilled space from within, with an expansive aspect of growing together, that's not transaction. That to me is, I don't know how else to say it other than pure love to the greatest possibility that we can. knowing that even that definition is so. How can you define something that we haven't even fully experienced yet?
Yeah. If you are looking to deepen your relationship, either with self or your partner or others, we have an amazing 5-day email course that you can explore. If you head on over to suivera.org, you can find out about all of the wonderful email courses that we have available and sign up there. Or if you're still looking for a way to silence that villainous inner critic, our book, Silence Your Inner Critic, is taking off like gangbusters. We actually hit number 1 on our publisher's list for top books sold. So we are making a splash. You can learn more about that at silenceyourinnercritic.com. And while you're here, if you're ready to explore more, take a look around the Heart Leader podcast. We have so much great content waiting just for you.